blood, incest, violence, shame, ignorance. What do all of these things have in common? You can find them all on Game of Thrones. Even more surprising, they're all in Shakespeare, too. Have you ever thought about where George R.R. Martin may have gotten his inspiration? Shakespeare's canonical characters experience much of the same trial and tribulations as Martin's, not to forget that Shakespeare killed just as many of his characters as those killed on Game of Thrones. Let's look at the parallels between the characters. First, let's take a look at Lady Macbeth and Cersei Lannister. Cersei kills basically everyone, always focusing on her family and seeking power, much like Lady Macbeth. Both women have extremely masculine qualities, not to mention the fact that both always have blood on their hands. I wouldn't be surprised if Cersei said, "Out, damn spot," herself. Art thou afeared to be the same in thine own act of valor as thou art in desire? Wouldst thou have that which thou esteemest the ornament of life, and live a coward in thine own esteem, letting "I dare not" wait upon "I would," like the poor cat in the adage? What beast was then that made you break this enterprise to me? When you durst do it, then you were a man. And to be more than what you were, you would be so much more than man. Nor time nor place did then adhere, and yet you would make both. They have made themselves, and that their fitness now does unmake you. I have given suck, and know how tender 'tis to love the babe that milks me. I would, while it was smiling in my face, have plucked my nipple from his boneless gums and dashed the brains out, had I so sworn as you have done this. If we should fail, screw your courage to the sticking place, and will not fail. And how could there be a complete Shakespeare comparison without a tyrannous king to boot? Although there are many horrific kings in the show, I would have to argue that Ramsay Bolton is just like King Richard III. In order to ensure his place in the line of succession, Richard III kills numerous people, including his own brother and even his 2 nephews. Richard III is insecure about his deformity, and this drives him to go insane. Ramsay is very similar in that his deformity is that he is a bastard. Once he is no longer a bastard legally, he becomes even more power-hungry and kills whoever he can. Ramsay is easily the most villainous character in the show. Clearly, both Richard III and Ramsay are willing to kill whoever necessary to get the power they desire and become the ultimate villain. But I, that am not shaped for sportive tricks nor made to court an amorous looking-glass. I, that am rudely stamped and want love's majesty to strut before a wanton ambling nymph. I, that am curtailed of this fair proportion, cheated of feature by dissembling nature, deformed, unfinished, sent before my time into this breathing world scarce half made up. And that so lamely and unfashionable that dogs bark at me as I halt by them. Why I, in this weak piping time of peace, have no delight to pass away the time, unless to see my shadow in the sun and descant on my own deformity. And therefore, since I cannot prove a lover to entertain these fair well-spoken days, I am determined to prove a villain, and hate the idle pleasures of these days. Plots have I laid, inductions dangerous, by drunk prophecies, libels, and dreams, to set my brother Clarence and the king in deadly hate the one against the other. And if King Edward be as true and just as I am subtle, false, and treacherous, this day should Clarence closely be mewed up about a prophecy which says the G of Edward's heirs the murderer shall be. Dive thoughts down to my soul. Here Clarence comes. Less obvious, it seems that Jon Snow seems to have a similar trajectory to that of Hamlet. Both of them are sons of kings. Their fathers were betrayed and killed, forcing them to seek revenge. Hamlet asks, to be or not to be, and contemplates the struggle of life and death. Jon Snow, on the other hand, grapples with this as well, but he actually dies. Both characters deal with their own struggle for understanding their identities and place in a world of chaos and death. To be or not to be? That is the question. Whether 'tis nobler in the mind to suffer the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune, or to take arms against a sea of troubles and by opposing end them. To die, to sleep, no more. By sleep to say we end the heartache in 1,000 natural shocks that flesh is heir to. 'Tis a consummation devoutly to be wished. To die, to sleep perchance to dream. Aye, there's the rub. For in that sleep of death what dreams may come when we have shuffled off this mortal coil must give us pause. There's the long respect that makes calamity of so long life. For who would bear the whips and scorns of time, the oppressor's wrong, the proud man's contumely, the pangs of despised love, the law's delay, the insolence of office, and the spurns that patient merit of the unworthy takes, when he himself might his quietus make with a bare bodkin? Who would fardels bear to grunt and sweat under a weary life, but that the dread of something after death, the undiscovered country, from whose bourne no traveler returns, puzzles the will, and makes us rather bear those ills we have than fly to others that we know not of? Thus conscience does make cowards of us all, and thus the native hue of resolution is sicklied o'er with the pale cast of thought. An enterprise of great pitch and moment with this regard their currents turn awry and lose the name of action. All in all, the medieval times in which Game of Thrones takes place was wrought with villainy, crime, sin, and poverty. William Shakespeare deals with many of the same themes and tribulations in his own plays. It's fairly clear that George R.R. Martin took some of his inspiration for his characters from our favorite bard himself.